All right, it is like 4:30 in the morning. Welcome back to another video. If you can't tell, I'm kind of tired, but hopefully this is going to be the start of us finally fixing this Suburban once and for all. I got about a 5-hour trip ahead of me, so I'm gonna just get started on it, and I'll see you guys as soon as I get there, and I'll show you guys why and what we're doing. Okay, I am in beautiful Castle Rock, Colorado, and I have picked up what I have driven 5 hours, 300 some odd miles at the crack of dawn for. So let me go ahead and reveal to you guys what I have, and then I'm gonna get my ass back home so I can go get this thing installed and finally finish this Suburban. All right, and right here is what I've gone through all this trouble for. This is a NV 4500 transmission. This is kind of rare. They came in late 90s, early 90s to late 90s GM trucks, heavy duty trucks. And the reason I drove this far for it was, first off, because I could not find any near me, and second, this was just a really good deal. It was $800. I gave the guy an extra 100 if he met me. He drove about 2 hours to meet me. I drove 5 hours, and overall this thing should be pretty solid. It is a 4-wheel drive unit, as you can see here. So this should just bolt right up to our MP208 and finally kind of resolve these issues. I really wanted to get the 4L80E working, but I just have ran out of patience on that truck. I don't know what's going on with it. And the original plan for this truck was to have it be manual anyway. This is a overdrive transmission, so it's basically just like that SM465 that we had in there, but just with the added bonus of overdrive. So shifter included. We can go ahead and use our hydraulic clutch linkage and stuff like that for it. So I think this is going to be a relatively simple swap, and I'm excited for it. So I got to get my ass 300 miles back home, and then we're going to get this thing installed as soon as I get a chance. All right, boys and girls, so it is once again time to do one of my least favorite things, which is to remove the transmission out of the Suburban. Just to catch you guys up to speed, that is my 1987 Suburban. We have a 5.3 engine in here, 4.8, I don't remember honestly. 4.8, 5.3, whatever. LS engine in there, and then we have a 4L80 automatic transmission. Now the reason we are even doing any of this is because we're just not able to get this 4L80E working properly. I don't know what's going on still. I've tried multiple transmissions. Could be the transfer case, I'm not really sure. But either way, the ultimate goal for this truck was not necessarily to have 4L80E. The 4L80E is a wonderful transmission. I like automatics, I have nothing against them. But this truck did come with a manual 4-speed. And so what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be dropping in the NV 4500 that we picked up in Colorado. I'm pretty sure I have just about everything I need. I already had a flywheel and clutch for this because it had a manual transmission in here. So I at least have a flywheel. I'm pretty sure the clutch is gonna work. We have everything to make the clutch work, hopefully. We're gonna have to make a custom hydraulic hose and all that and make sure everything fits. But first things we gotta do, like I said, is remove this 4L80E once again. We're gonna have to drop it, remove the transfer case off of it, put the transfer case on this one, and then put everything back together. Luckily, everything should line up exactly how the old manual transmission did. There's already a hole in the floor for it and all that. So no more talking, let's get straight to work. I'm gonna see a lot of time lapses. I'm gonna go for a personal record here. I've pulled this transmission out at least 10 times now. I should be able to do this in less than half an hour. So let's give it a shot. All right, I was a little slower this time, about 45 minutes, 50 minutes, but it is out. As you can see, I'm gonna let it just finish draining out of that transfer case there, and then we'll go ahead and slide this thing out. and get that transfer case hooked up to the NV4500, and then start kind of fitting everything up in here. So before we go and just slap this thing in there, there's a couple things I want to do, mostly clean it up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and change this stud ball. I don't really think I need to, but I might as well. I have all the hydraulic stuff for it. We're probably going to have to find nuts for those. This is all just kind of roughed in here, so this is the clutch fork and all that. Now, don't be fooled thinking that this transmission is going to be a lot lighter and you're gonna be able to do this, you know, by yourself and just lift it up in there. You definitely cannot. This transmission probably weighs as much as the 4L80E, maybe a little bit less, but these things are definitely heavy. I know I definitely felt it when I was taking it out of the car. That's why it's right here, is because I didn't want to move it any further. It's heavy, very heavy. So what we're gonna have to do, obviously, is we're gonna have to get the transfer case over here, hook the transfer case up to this, make sure everything mates up, which it should. This should be a 32 spline output. Transfer case is a 32 spline input. And then I'm gonna get this thing in here, and then we're gonna drain it and refill it, just because there's a chance it has water or whatever in it. So give it the best chance of living. Drain it all out and fill it up with fresh gear oil or whatever this thing takes. It might even be ATF, I'm not sure. And yeah, just replace anything on here that needs to be replaced. I don't exactly know the condition of this transmission. I mean, it should be good. As long as it shifts into gear, we're fine. You know, I'd hate to have to rebuild this thing after we install it, but it's used, so hopefully it works. I've just learned my lesson not to really take a seller's word for anything. I'm willing to accept the risk, and if it doesn't work, I hope it at least has like 4 out of 5 gears, you know? Let's see. There we go. So to replace this, it's just going to be this guy right here. We're just unscrew it, pop that one in, and we should be good to go. Okay, so we're back underneath the Suburban because this little bastard is really hard to get locally. I ended up having to order it, so I had to wait a couple more days. But what this is the input bearing. There's a better word for this. Input bearing. Don't remember the word right now. I'll put it right here. But this is the input bearing that we needed for basically any transmission or any manual transmission. This is going to be the bearing that you're going to put in the LS. There is like 1 or 2 flavors. I ended up getting one locally that wasn't the right flavor. It's a little bit too small, I think it was. So this is the one that should just fit. Nice tight interference fit into the back of the crank there. And this one is 12557583. So if you are following this, this is the one you need. I got it on Amazon, but Summit Racing, a couple other places have them. It's just a GM part number. If you're looking for it, I believe it is just a LS2 input bearing. What is this thing called? I can't for the life of me remember what this is called. But anyway, let's get her open here. And then we're going to make sure this is the right one. So first thing I do is make sure it fits on the transmission, which it does. That's good. Let's see. So yep, that fits there. Slide over to underneath the engine. Okay. And yep, that's gonna be the fit that we need. So the way that I typically do these is just get them in there, and then I have a tool that's the same size as this, and then we're just gonna tap it in basically. So let me go get that tool and all that, and I'll tap this in. You guys don't really need to see that. I'm pretty sure I've done this before, even on the same vehicle nonetheless. The other thing is I did definitely have one of these because I definitely took one out of the other engine before, or actually out of this engine before converting it over to automatic. I lost it, I guess. But nonetheless, let's get this thing in there. Let's get the flywheel on, and let's get the clutch assembled. All right, boys and girls. So we've actually made quite a bit of progress in the last couple days. I'll take you guys underneath here. Actually, let's take you inside. And you could see we have our transmission in place. Things didn't line up exactly where the old SM465 was originally. You can see the hole here for the SM465. This is how much I had to cut out. You know, obviously one thing we can see here is that the four-wheel drive shifter is kind of in the way. So I'm thinking of just kind of modifying this bracket, cutting off most of this here. There's still plenty of bolts around here that get bolted in, but kind of just trimming everything out of the way and then making some kind of plate to cover this up just so we don't have a giant hole in our floor anymore. So if you recall, or I'll repeat everything again. So this truck was originally a 350, so a 5.7 with an automatic, probably a 700R4. I know that because of the steering column. It still has the automatic shifter, if you can see there. And then it did have the full throw of the shift arm there, and it does have an overdrive symbol on the dashboard. So that means it was probably a 700R4 with a 5.7 350, which would have been, if we look on our driver's side here, fuel injected. So 87 TBI, I believe. So it was a 5.7 700R4 combo. I think the other owner put the 6.2 diesel and the SM465, and that's where that hole kind of came from. I think that's actually a factory. There's like an indentation on that cover there. That's why we had a hole there already. If this would have just been an automatic car, we could have probably made a much smaller hole, but you know, that's neither here nor there. We'll get that covered up and we'll get that fixed. We'll probably end up just recarpeting this whole thing anyway. Now, moving on, we'll take a look underneath the truck here, and we need a couple bolts here in the cross member here. But one thing I thought was interesting is that if you guys are doing this, you can see here that, let me get in here. So that hole that's wallered out there, I wallered out that hole because that was the front hole for the 4L80. So the same bracket that we used, this hole here would have actually been here on the 4L80. So putting the MB4500 in here, it looks like everything is about the exact same length as it would have been with the 700R4, because as you can see, these holes do line up with the original holes in the frame. Same thing on the other side. You can see our drive shaft fits in there just like the 700R4 would have. And then we will get the front drive shaft hooked back up to the transfer case in just a few here, but that also should just bolt right in and line up the same. A couple things we have to do. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that trans cooler up in the front, remove all the lines with that, save that for another project basically. What I would also like to do is, if you guys recall, or I'm not even sure if I ever showed it, because a lot of the footage for the 4L80E and stuff just got kind of discombobulated and thrown together because it was basically 6 months of torture. But what we have here, this is a Walker's, I believe it's a Walker's performance piece. This is a speed sensor for a MP208. It's a pretty cool piece actually, and it worked pretty well. So this actually allows the LS engine to get a speed source from the transfer case. And the reason that's important is because on a four-wheel drive vehicle, if you were to be in four-wheel drive and you're only taking your speed sensor off of the back of the transmission, you won't actually have an accurate speed because of the gearing and whatnot. So that's kind of an interesting piece. I thought that maybe that would have been part of my issues on the 4L80E. Didn't end up resolving anything really, but just giving me an accurate speed. Now, what I could do though, is we have a couple options. We could leave this in here so the LS computer actually knows what speed we're going, which on a manual transmission isn't that important. It does give us that data directly from the computer, which we could use later, you know, possibly on like a screen or something. We can get a speed there. Or we can convert this back to mechanical. I have everything to just throw the old drive back in there and hook this right back up to our manual speedometer up top. Now there's advantages to both, obviously. Main advantage being if I go mechanical again, everything's right here and I get accurate speed on my dash, you know, without spending too much money. The plus to the speed thing is that we can go ahead and grab a 91 Suburban gauge cluster if we can find one. They're kind of unicorns, but if we were to grab one, we could use this sensor here to get an accurate speed up to our speedometer, and that would be a digital reference signal basically. Let's see, any other things to note? The clutch, let's talk about the clutch. Okay, so as you can see, we're using the original clutch setup here. I was a little bit worried that there was gonna be some interference or anything with this front drive shaft. I believe if this was a stock height truck, so without the small little leveling kit or 2-inch lift we have on here, I think that we probably could run into issues where your drive shaft ends up hitting your clutch master cylinder or things like that. Obviously, I have yet to put the front drive shaft in, so we won't exactly know that, but we can assume that, you know, everything's gonna kind of fit the way it looks. But yes, stock clutch master cylinder. I believe I'm still getting a leak here, so this is gonna become an issue, but I have a fitting in here. I'll post that one here. I don't believe this is the exact right fitting for this clutch. I believe it needs to be longer, but I have it kind of in there just for now. Everything does work, but eventually I believe we will, you know, probably lose clutch from that small little leak there. That all just goes to a clutch fork inside there, which you can see, and it seems to be working pretty well actually. I was pleasantly surprised by that. And then we're just converting this over to -4 line, running this up and over the transmission up to the factory slave cylinder. So that line is running up to our stock master cylinder here for the clutch. You can see I have the stock hard line going down, and then about there-ish, we went ahead and used a hard line adapter. Basically, it is like a compression fitting that turns into AN line. And so we're using that to go ahead and convert this over to -4. I may try to just do something similar on the slave cylinder there if I can't find the right adapter to go to AN line. So what we have in there is one of these guys. This is an AN3, and then this is like an M12, I think, flared adapter. Now the problem is, if I know anything about fittings, this flare portion, or this whole fitting itself, is just kind of too short. I believe this flare needs to be a lot taller, so probably just a taller fitting to get the flare to actually seat. So right now I believe our threads are seating, and then we're bottoming out on the bottom of the flange here, but our thing is not actually sealing, so it's gonna kind of leak through the threads eventually. So that's the clutch. Nothing fancy. You know, I think a lot of people stress over clutches, clutch lines, power steering lines, and stuff like that. A lot of this stuff can be remedied by AN line, and a lot of you guys are probably screaming at me right now saying that AN lines are built for pressure, they're gonna burst, blah, 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 blah. These are PTFE lines. Even the cheapest Amazon ones are rated to like 3,000 pounds. I don't think we're gonna ever see 3,000 pounds of pressure on our clutch line, but you know, if it were to burst, obviously we'd deal with that at that point, but just making sure we have the right fittings obviously is more important than the actual line bursting or the line pressure rating. With power steering, same kind of situation. On this truck, we went with all AN line, PTFE line, and all of this has been holding up even on the Hydro Boost. So all of that's been working just fine. I have not even sprung a single leak out of this. So, you know, knock on wood or whatever, but everything seems to be working just fine using these AN lines. One more thing I'll touch on was that, you know, we're using sliding mounts in here. There was a scenario that I was kind of going through where I was getting ready to pull the engine forward to its max level. I ended up just not doing that because I already have the exhaust system already fabricated. I would have had to add another, you know, inch or so to my exhaust if I would have done that. But what that would have gained me is just moving that shifter up like another inch or so, which really in hindsight didn't really gain us much anyway. The shifter probably would have been about here. So could I have done that? Yes. Could you guys do that if you're doing this in a vehicle? Yes, obviously, just plan for it. You know, our drive shaft's already looking a little bit short, so adding another inch to that might have made us get a new drive shaft basically. So don't want to do that either. And then we might have had to shorten our front drive shaft as well. So, you know, factors to consider when doing this, but basically what I've determined here is that an MV45 behind an LS is going to be about the same exact overall dimension as a 4L60 or 700 R4 behind an LS. You'll just have to make holes for your shifter and all that stuff as well. As far as testing goes, everything is working, for the in and out of my driveway. I was able to move this truck back just a little bit, basically move the truck, park it over there, and then moved it back. I know that's not a great test, but it did shift into first gear, it shifted into low gear, and it shifted into reverse. So far we're pretty good there. Obviously I haven't gone on the road to try first, second, third, and fourth gear, but we will get there. Another thing is I had to flash in my old standard tune that I had for the SM465. When you have a 4L80 or an automatic transmission behind these LSs, there is like a list of things, dependencies, sensors, things that it's looking for, and it could just make your engine run like absolute crap because it has no idea what's going on once you remove the automatic transmission. Now I still have all my wiring for the 4L80E, which I think I will just tuck away for now. We're not going to do anything with that just this second. I think at this point it's better to just tuck that away and kind of save it for later just in case. Other than that, I mean, we have some wiring we need to sort out still. The ECU and all that's just kind of roughly laying there. You can see a lot of my stuff is laying on my shifter linkage here and whatnot, but we will sort all that out at another point. The main goal for this was just to get this thing moving again, which it is, which I'm so happy for, and I'm so glad, because this thing has been sitting for quite a while and it's really been a drag on me. So getting this transmission I think was the right move. I obviously could have probably got that 4L80E working at some point. It was just taking a lot of troubleshooting that I just didn't have time for. So moving forward, I'm gonna just wrap up a couple things on here. I've ordered some transmission fluid, so we're gonna do a transmission oil change on this basically. These NV4500s take a very, very, very particular oils. There's like maybe 3 different oils you can use on these. One of them's a GM part number, one of them's a Dodge part number, and the other one is some AMSOIL, so I went with the AMSOIL. That should be here tomorrow. We'll flush this transmission out, put some new fluid in, top off our transfer case, hook all that up, and then hopefully we have a running and driving truck again, because the LS has not skipped a beat on this since we've put it in here. It's mostly just been transmission related issues after this. So I believe what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and end this one here. I think this is a good stopping point for this video. In the next video, it will hopefully be driving this thing again and, carrying on with what we were originally trying to do with this, which is just have like a nice winter off-road beater. Maybe go test it out on some trails or something. But yeah, as of right now, I think that's it for this video. As always, my name is Jovani Dante Griego. If you guys have any questions, any at all, you can follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/Jovani Dante Griego, Instagram @Jovani Dante, or you can go to my website, JovaniDanteGriego.com. I have tons of articles there, stuff about 4L80Es, LS swaps, everything and anything in between. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, guys.